Hello guys, welcome to another video. In this video, I'll be discussing about tool calling using LangChain. So what is tool calling and why do we need tool calling? When you ask a query to LLM, for suppose let's ask a query to LLM, let's ask what is the weather in Hyderabad. When you do this, it provided you some kind of information because it is aware of such information and it has provided you some information. If you have some other information, if it is aware, it provides you. What if you want to use LLM in the places where the LLM is not aware of? For example, you want to update your database for a so and so user with the so and so address. LLMs can't go and update the database, right? So in that cases, when you create a method in which you update the database, and if you give access to that method to the LLM can generate the arguments for that method using the context you give. For suppose you have written a context like please update the address for the user Praveen and the ID is 123. So it can generate the arguments for that method. ID equal to 123, address equal to this. So we can call that method based on the context. So that's how the tool calling is used. Whenever the LLMs are not aware of something, and if you want LLMs to use in that places, we'll go with the tool calling. I mean, as the name suggests, tool calling does not directly call the tool. We have to explicitly call that method. It will just generate the arguments for that method. That's what I've written here. Remember, while the name tool calling implies that the model is directly performing some action, that is actually not the case. The model only generates the arguments to the tool. You can decide tool is like some kind of method, any kind of method, and the logic inside the method can be anything. And actually running the tool is up to the user. It does not call, it just generates the arguments based on the user input. That's it. So let's take a very basic example here. I have a method called sumMarks. It takes a list of list of integers, and it just sums and returns the sums. I have another method called averageMarks. It takes a list of subjects, and it just calculates the average and returns the average. So to make any method as a tool, you have to give @tool on top of this method. So this method can be converted as a tool in LangChain. So now we have an access to LLM, right? Like we use chat OpenAI in case if you want to go with the OpenAI LLM, we use chat OpenAI and LLM.invoke of any question you ask, you get the response. Similarly, now to make LLM access to this tool, you need to use this particular method, LLM.bind tools of tools. Tools is nothing but the list of the methods which you want. That's it. So from now on, you have to use LLM with tools instead of LLM, because this LLM will not have access to our tools, but LLM with tools will have access to our tools. And when you ask some question related to these tools, it would be able to generate the arguments. In this case, it's the subject list of integers. That's it. See, let's see here. My query is what is the sum and average marks Praveen has got. His marks are 80, 67, so and so. So this is the query I'm giving, and I'm asking to calculate the sum and average. So the LLM should calculate both the methods, sum. So the LLM should call both the methods, sum as well as average, with the argument as this list of marks. See, as it's a human query, I just wrapped it inside the human message of query. That's it. Now, when I do LLM with tools.invoke of message, and append that output to the AI message. So when I print that AI message, this is the context it has written. It has written this particular full context. And now if you see the context here, and when you just open it, it has a dictionary with a key as tool calls and the value as a list here. So this list ends here. So let's separate this out. And when you see this list has an ID called unique ID for the first method. This is an unique ID which is given to the first method, which is sumMarks, and this is an unique ID which LLM uses for the second method called averageMarks. If you see inside this tool calls, which we have a list, and inside list it has a name called marks and a subject so and so, and in the second value in the list, it has a name called averageMarks, and the values is this arguments is this subject. So now we can iterate through this context after we triggered, we got this AI message, right? We can iterate through this context, and we can use these particular methods and trigger those methods. That's what we are doing here. If you see, I am iterating through this one, AI message dot tool calls. AI message is what we have printed here. Dot tool calls means I am iterating through this list one by one, as I have only in my query, I have asked only to do sum and average, and I have only two methods or two tools here. So this iterate twice. See, I have printed it. When I iterate it through these tool calls, in the first run, I got the sum of marks, and what I am doing is I am just selecting the tool. Whenever you get this name as sum marks, if you see here tool calls of name, that means this tool calls of name is equal to sum marks, then call the sum marks method. When the tool calls of name is average marks, then call the average mark. So I'm just telling that based on the context we got from the LLM, trigger so and so method. That's it. And in this line, we are just invoking that method. That's it. The selected tool dot invoke of tool calls. I mean, we are just passing this whole argument here. Sorry, this whole argument. And again, in the second run, when it gets the average marks, we are just passing this whole argument. That's it. And I am appending the response of that again into the messages. So these messages, see, when I printed it, it has the human query, and for the human query what it has responded, and when we trigger the tool what we got. So when you put all this again to the LLM with tools.invoke, you get the exact response. Praveen's tool total marks are 386 and average marks are 772. That's it. I'm just printing the context here. So that's how we can bind the tools to the LLM and trigger the tools whenever we want, based on the arguments which LLM generates for the queries or for the context we give to the LLM. Now the second scenario is, as I have previously given example that for suppose if we have a method which updates the address or some other information in the database, and we can't give the user ID to the LLM, right? It's a security risk. So how do you pass some values at the runtime? So to pass the values at the runtime, we have to use this class ingestion tool arg. So let's see how we do that. So this is LLM. Okay. Now I freshly created another variable LLM now, and I have three methods here. And what this method does is, instead of taking the database, I have taken an empty dictionary, and these methods will update the dictionary based on the arguments passed. This method will delete the values in the dictionary based on the user ID, and this method will just list the values in the dictionary. That's it. See, if you see here, just add the list of favorite pets. I'm just adding, and it takes two arguments. One is the pets, list of pets, and the second is user ID. For this user ID, update so and so pets into the dictionary. We are just not going to the database. Instead, we are just updating in the basic dictionary. So we are just updating here, nothing else, and we are just deleting here, nothing else, and we are just listing everything. That's it. But if you see the arguments taken to each method, the first one is a pets, which is of type list and user, well and good. And if you see the second argument, wherever I have the user ID, I am using annotated of string type, comma, ingestion tool arg. So when you pass something like this to a variable in the argument, that means this tool argument might not be passed immediately. It can be passed at the runtime. That's the purpose of this ingest tool argument. I'll show you what was happening. So when I do this basic Python method name dot input schema dot schema, if you see, it has two arguments. One is pets and the second is user ID. Here we have just seen the schema for the like a basic Python method, but as we have converted into a tool, and if you view in the point of a tool, it is not expecting an argument called user ID here. It is expecting only one argument pets, but here it is expecting two arguments. That means because we have used ingest tool args class for this so and so column, it expects these arguments only at the runtime. It does not expect the argument when we are generating the arguments to this tool. That's what it says here. So I'm just trying to do the basic stuff here. I have a user ID and I'm just calling the updates method dot invoke of one is the pets and the user ID, and when you print for that so and so user ID, I got the information which I have updated. That's it. That's how we update, right? Now let's go and see how we do it with tools and with LLM. So if you see, these are the tools. I'm just binding like how I have binded above. From now on, instead of using LLM, we use LLM with tools, because this LLM with tools variable will have access to our tools as well. So now what I have given, my favorite animals are cats and parrots alone. So with this context, it will be able to generate the values for the variable pets as cats and parrots. That's it. So when you do AI message dot tool calls, why tool calls? Because if you see above what I have explained, when you call this method inside the tool calls only, we have the list of arguments, right? So that's what I'm doing down also. So dot tool calls, it has given this name as update favorite, the method name which it decided to call, and the arguments with the pets alone. Now I have a method which is used to ingest the user ID at the runtime. I'll explain this method shortly, but now I create the chain if you see here. So I just called LLM with tools in this chain. I mean, we can build the chain so that once this operation is done, then this will do. And once this is done, this will do. And the output of this will be passed to this, and the output of this will be passed to this. That's what, and that is how we build the chains in LangChain. So I'm just creating an LLM first, and I'm calling the ingest user ID method because I am ingesting the user ID in the runtime, not directly here like this for user ID, not like this. And I'm triggering the tool, whatever the tool you want, because we need to manually trigger the tool. And when I do chain.invoke for this method, the values gets updated. If you see here for 1, 2, 3 carrots and parrots. So now I will show you what this ingest user ID method and what this tool router is doing. This ingest user ID method is just taking the AI message and iterating through the tool calls. For each tool call, it is just creating an argument called user ID and assigning the value. The user ID is what we have given above here, this hard coded value. In the real time, we get it from some database or somewhere, but here we are just hard coding it. So inside the arguments, it is creating another argument called user ID with the value this. So when you see my print statements, when we got this tool call copy, we got this, which is fine. The argument here is only one, which is pets and the list of animals. So in the above, we have printed this, right? The tool calls, if you see, it has only one argument, pets. And here we are updating with the user ID in the same arguments dictionary only with the user ID also. So that's what we got here. We updated this AI message. That's it. So we are updating the tools calls dictionary inside the response of this AI message variable. This AI message is nothing but this one which we saw. I mean this one. So we are just updating. We are just making this one into something like this. And what is the difference over here is just adding the user ID in the runtime. That's it. We are not passing it to the LLM. Instead, we are updating the response which we got from the LLM. And now this we can pass it to this update favorite pets method, and for this user ID it gets updated. Now if we come down, we are clear on how this ingest user ID is working. And now this tool router, what are we doing? Tool router.map. Tool router is this method, and we are just returning the dictionary. And what we are doing in the tool router, what is this tool map? And what we are doing in this tool router is we are calling this tool map. Tool map is nothing but the dictionary of the tool names we have. So like when you just iterate through the tools, so we are just making a dictionary out of this name. That means whenever you get update favorite pets, then call update favorites method. When you get delete favorite pets, call delete favorite method. When we get list favorite pets, call list favorite method. That's what we are doing. It's just creating a dictionary out of these tools, because the tool will be the actual method and the key will be the tool.name. That's it. That's what we have done above also. If you see here, that's what we have done here. When you want to do sum marks, when in the response under the name, if you get average marks, call average marks. When you get sum marks under the name in the response, call sum marks. We have done that. The same thing we are doing there. And that's what we'll have in the tool map, and we are just calling the tool. That's it. You see here, if you see inside from the tool map, just call tool call of name, whatever the name we got. If you get update pets. If you get delete pets. That's what. And if you see here, my favorite animals are cats and parrot. I did not pass any user ID here. And when you run it, it gets updated. This is a dictionary, right? So this dictionary got updated with carrot and pets for this user ID. So this is how we can pass some values or the secret values at the runtime instead of passing it to the LLM using the tools. If you see here, this is another way. I have a class. This is a Pydantic way, and the above one which we saw is a type dict. This is a type dict way because we have used annotated class and all. And if you want, you can even use the Pydantic way also. Let's create a class. The first one is a pets, which is of type list of string. That's it. We are just explaining the purpose of this variable. And the second one is of type ingest tool args. So this will not be called through the LLM. If you see here, in this method, we are just updating it, and at the rate tool arg schema, get it from this class is what we are saying. And this is how the Pydantic way of Python will be. While passing the schema to the tools, we are just referring it to use so and so class. That's how the Pydantic way of Python works. And if you see, when you just get the normal schema, it is expecting both the variables, pets as well as user ID. And when you try to get the schema from the tools, it is expecting only pets. That's it. So these are the two ways you can pass this ingested tool args and hide the variables which we want to pass. That's it. Thank you so much for watching.